In the summer of 1993, the sun-kissed shores of Hilton Head Island promised a rare escape for the Johnson family, a beacon of respite amid the relentless grind of everyday life. Elijah Johnson, a dedicated civil rights attorney from Atlanta, had scrimped and saved for this week-long rental, a modest beach house nestled among the dunes, where the Atlantic's waves whispered promises of peace. His wife, Miriam, a school teacher with a voice like honey and a spirit forged in the fires of the March on Washington, dreamed of building sandcastles with their two children, little Aisha, 8 years old and brimming with curiosity, her braids adorned with colorful beads that clicked like laughter in the breeze, and Marcus, 12, already tall and thoughtful, his eyes reflecting the depth of his father's wisdom. They were a family bound by love, resilience, and an unyielding pride in their Black heritage, a heritage that had weathered storms far fiercer than any ocean could muster. As they unpacked their station wagon, filled with picnic baskets, books on African American history, and Miriam's cherished quilt sewn from scraps of ancestors' fabrics, the air hummed with anticipation. This vacation was more than a break, it was a celebration of survival, a testament to their dignity in a world that often sought to diminish it. The first few days unfolded like a dream. Elijah taught Marcus to body surf, his strong arms guiding the boy through the swells, while Miriam and Aisha collected seashells, weaving stories of ancient African queens who commanded the seas. Evenings brought barbecues on the porch, where the family shared tales of Elijah's courtroom battles against discriminatory housing policies and Miriam's lessons on the Harlem Renaissance. Neighbors in the predominantly white rental community glanced curiously at first, some offering polite waves, others averting their eyes with a tightness that spoke volumes. But the Johnsons paid it little mind, they were there to reclaim joy, to let the salt air cleanse the wounds of systemic injustice that scarred their daily lives back home. Yet, beneath the idyllic surface, whispers of unease stirred. Local fishermen muttered about outsiders disrupting the quiet, and a real estate agent had hesitated when booking the rental, citing vague concerns about fitting in. Elijah dismissed it as paranoia born from years of advocacy, but Miriam felt a chill, a premonition that the waves hid secrets deeper than the tide. On the fourth night, as a full moon bathed the beach in silver, the family vanished. Their rental stood eerily silent the next morning, doors unlocked, dinner plates half-eaten on the table, Aisha's favorite doll abandoned on the couch. The station wagon remained parked, keys in the ignition. No signs of struggle, no forced entry, just an absence that echoed like a scream swallowed by the sea. Word spread quickly through the island's tight-knit community, but the response was muted, almost indifferent. Local police arrived hours later, their investigation cursory at best. Sheriff Harlan Tate, a man whose family had deep roots in the segregated South, scribbled notes with a skepticism that bordered on disdain. Probably just skipped out on the bill, he grumbled to his deputy, ignoring Elijah's reputation and the family's spotless record. Missing persons reports were filed, but searches were half-hearted. Divers skimmed the shallows half-heartedly. Volunteers from the Black community in nearby Savannah were turned away, labeled as agitators. Media coverage was sparse, national outlets barely mentioned it, while local papers buried the story under headlines about tourist festivals. Whispers of foul play circulated among Black residents, tales of similar disappearances in the past, brushed under the rug of racial apathy. But official narratives leaned toward accident or abandonment, painting the Johnsons as irresponsible, perhaps even criminal, to justify the inaction. As weeks turned to months, the case grew cold, a file gathering dust in a precinct drawer. Elijah's colleagues in Atlanta rallied, demanding federal intervention, but doors slammed shut, discrimination cloaked in bureaucracy. Miriam's sister, Lena, a fierce activist, organized vigils, her voice cracking as she spoke of the family's unyielding courage. They fought for justice every day, now justice must fight for them. Yet, the world moved on, leaving a void that swallowed hope. Aisha's laughter faded from memory, Marcus's dreams of becoming a doctor dissolved like sea foam. The beach house was rented out again, its walls repainted, as if the Johnsons had never existed. For 3 decades, their story lingered in the shadows of Black oral histories, a cautionary tale of how systemic neglect erases lives. Families whispered it around dinner tables, teaching children about the fragility of dignity in a society built on inequality. Pride sustained the survivors. Lena raised funds for scholarships in their names, turning grief into legacy. But the truth remained buried, waiting for nature's fury to unearth it. 30 years later, in the fall of 2023, Hurricane Lydia roared across the Carolinas, her winds howling like ancestral cries demanding reckoning. The storm surge clawed at Hilton Head's shores, ripping away layers of sand and secrets long concealed. As the tempest subsided, locals emerged to assess the damage, homes flooded, boardwalks splintered, and dunes reshaped into alien landscapes. Amid the debris, a construction crew rebuilding a eroded seawall stumbled upon something chilling, a rusted metal drum, half buried and battered, its lid pried open by the waves. Inside, skeletal remains tangled with remnants of clothing, a quilt fragment, beads from a child's braids, a man's wallet bearing Elijah Johnson's ID. The discovery sent shockwaves through the island, but for the Black community, it was a thunderclap of vindication. Forensic teams descended, their tests confirming the unimaginable: the Johnsons had been murdered, their bodies weighted and dumped in a shallow grave beneath the dunes, mere yards from their rental. The revelation cracked open a Pandora's box of buried truths. Reopened investigations, fueled by modern DNA analysis and relentless advocacy from descendants like Lena's daughter, Maya, a prosecutor with her uncle's fire, uncovered a web of discrimination and cover-up. In 1993, the family had clashed with a group of local white supremacists, emboldened by the era's rising tensions post-Rodney King riots. Elijah, ever the advocate, had confronted them after they harassed beachgoers of color, demanding equal access to public spaces. Witnesses, silenced by fear back then, now came forward. The supremacists, including relatives of Sheriff Tate, had ambushed the family that moonlit night, driven by hatred that saw Black joy as a threat. The murders were brutal, swift, bodies disposed in the drum, a relic from a nearby boatyard, to mimic an accidental drowning. Tate's investigation? A deliberate sabotage, reports falsified, evidence ignored, all to protect the community's reputation. As details emerged, the nation watched, riveted by the story's emotional depth, a family's courage in the face of terror, their dignity intact even in death. Maya Johnson led the charge for justice, her courtroom presence a symphony of pride and resolve. "This is not just about my family," she declared in press conferences, her voice steady yet laced with the pain of generations. "It's about every Black life vanished, every story silenced by indifference." Prosecutions followed, aging perpetrators dragged into the light, their defenses crumbling under the weight of irrefutable evidence. The trial became a national spectacle, a mirror reflecting America's unresolved sins. Testimonies stirred souls, survivors recounting the Johnsons' laughter, experts dissecting the forensics, activists linking it to broader patterns of racial violence. Emotions ran high, tears in the gallery, fists raised in solidarity outside. Yet, through it all, the narrative highlighted resilience, Elijah's legal legacy inspiring reforms in missing persons protocols for marginalized communities, Miriam's teaching ethos birthing educational programs on Black history, Aisha and Marcus immortalized in murals depicting their innocent dreams. In the end, convictions brought closure, but true resolution lay in the family's enduring spirit. The beach house, now a memorial site, stands as a symbol of dignity reclaimed, a place where visitors learn of the Johnsons' pride, their courage against the tide of hate. Lena, frail but fierce, attended the dedication, whispering to the waves, "You couldn't erase us." As the sun sets on Hilton Head, the story lives on, a testament to justice's slow but inevitable arc. For in uncovering the truth, the storm didn't just reveal bones, it unearthed the unbreakable soul of a people, forever stirring hearts toward equity and honor. The storm's aftermath on Hilton Head Island in 2023 was more than a physical reckoning, it was a spiritual awakening, a call to unearth truths long buried beneath the sands of silence. The discovery of the Johnson family's remains, a rusted drum cradling their bones, Elijah's wallet, Miriam's quilt fragment, Aisha's beads, shattered the island's veneer of tranquility. For 30 years, the Black community had whispered their story, a wound kept raw by systemic neglect, but now the waves had spoken, and the world was forced to listen. Maya Johnson, Elijah's niece and a prosecutor with a fire that mirrored her uncle's, stood at the forefront, her heart a crucible of grief and resolve. She was only a child when the family vanished, but their legacy, Elijah's courtroom battles for justice, Miriam's lessons on Black pride. Aisha's laughter, Marcus's dreams, had shaped her into a warrior for truth. As forensic teams meticulously catalogued the remains, confirming the Johnsons' identities, Maya vowed to unravel the conspiracy that stole her family, her voice a beacon for a community too long ignored. The reopened investigation peeled back layers of complicity. Witnesses, once cowed by fear, now emerged from the shadows: retired fishermen, former maids, a groundskeeper who'd seen too much. They spoke of that moonlit night in 1993, when a group of white supremacists, emboldened by the era's racial tensions, targeted the Johnsons. Elijah's confrontation over their harassment of black beachgoers had sparked a deadly vendetta. The perpetrators, including kin of Sheriff Harlan Tate, ambushed the family in their rental, a crime executed with chilling precision. The drum, sourced from a nearby boatyard, was meant to erase them, its weight dragging their bodies to the ocean's floor, disguised as a tragic accident. Tate's role was damning: falsified reports, ignored leads, a search called off before it began. Protecting the island's image, he'd called it, a euphemism for shielding his own. Maya's team, armed with modern forensics, DNA traces, sediment analysis, built an airtight case, each piece a tribute to the family's dignity, a defiance of the erasure they'd endured. The trial, televised across the nation, was a crucible of emotion. Maya's opening statement set the tone, her words weaving pride and pain. The Johnsons were not just victims, they were warriors, their love a rebellion against hate. Witnesses painted vivid portraits, a neighbor recalling Miriam's lullabies drifting through the night, a colleague testifying to Elijah's courage in challenging discriminatory laws. Forensic experts detailed the brutality: fractured bones, traces of struggle, yet the narrative never lingered on despair. Instead, it celebrated resilience. Aisha's beads, preserved in the sand, became symbols of innocence unbroken. Marcus's journal, found in the rental, revealed sketches of a future hospital, his dream of healing undimmed. The defense, grasping at outdated alibis, faltered under the weight of truth. Outside the courthouse, crowds gathered: black families, activists, allies, holding signs that read "Justice for the Johnsons," their chants a rhythm of hope. The emotional tide swelled with each revelation, a collective catharsis for a nation grappling with its past. The perpetrators, now elderly, faced the consequences of their hatred. One, a former deputy, wept as he confessed, his guilt a belated reckoning. Another, Tate's cousin, remained defiant, his sneers a fading echo of 1993's venom. Convictions came swiftly, life sentences for some, shorter terms for others, but Maya's focus transcended punishment. She spearheaded reforms: mandatory training for police on handling missing persons cases involving marginalized groups, federal oversight for racially charged investigations. The beach house, purchased by a coalition of black activists, became the Johnson family memorial, its walls adorned with photos, quilts, and letters from supporters worldwide. Lena, Miriam's sister, stood at its opening, her frail frame trembling with pride. "They tried to bury us," she whispered, "but we rose." School children visited, learning of Elijah's advocacy, Miriam's teachings, and the children's dreams, their stories woven into curricula celebrating black resilience. The trial's ripples reached beyond Hilton Head. Documentaries aired, tracing the Johnsons' story alongside others erased by systemic bias. Community centers named after Aisha and Marcus sprouted in Atlanta, offering scholarships for black youth. Maya, now a national figure, spoke at universities, her message clear: justice delayed is not justice denied. The story's emotional weight lingered, viewers wept at the thought of Aisha's doll left behind, cheered at Maya's courtroom triumphs. Yet, it was the family's dignity that resonated most, their refusal to be diminished even in death. On the beach, where the drum once lay hidden, a monument rose, a bronze sculpture of four hands clasped, waves curling at its base, inscribed with Elijah's words from a 1992 speech: "Our pride is our shield, our love our sword." As the sun dipped low, casting gold across the shore, the Johnsons' legacy stood firm, a testament to courage, a call to honor every life unjustly taken, and a promise that truth, like the tide, will always return.